Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to another edition of Movie Goodness, where we examine life through cinema here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and to all of my young ladies and younger ladies, I'm not going to call y'all old or nothing, but happy International Women's Day. March 8th of every year is International Women's Day. And this is a day that's near and dear to my heart, should be near and dear to everybody's heart, whether you're a woman or not, because I'm pretty sure you had a mama. And so that alone is enough to celebrate International Women's Day. But I not only have a mother, of course, but I have sisters. I have a wife. I have two daughters. And I'm basically surrounded by women. You know, my whole life. It was me, my dad, and my brother. That's the only males in my family that I can say. Everything else was women. And so I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I know how women tick. You know, I know everything there is to know about the female. That is a lie. You'll never know. You'll never know what's going on inside of the skull of a female, but I love them nonetheless. We are going to celebrate them today. This is a celebration of women around the world. It doesn't matter your race, your religion, your culture, whatever the case may be. We're celebrating you all today, and not only today, but throughout the month of March, because not only is March 8th International Women's Day, but the month of March is International Women's Month. So the whole month we celebrate y'all, even though we should celebrate y'all 365, 24/7. Well, this year 366 because it's a leap year. And so we're going to celebrate you hard and heavy today. All of you women who are listening, I appreciate you tuning in and listening. Love you all. This episode is for you. We're going to go through International Women's Day. We're going to discuss the theme of International Women's Day for 2024 and go through some of the festivities that are taking place around the world concerning this day. And we're going to review a film that was pretty much a no-brainer for me when I was putting this show together. It is none other than the 2017 superhero comic book film Wonder Woman. And we're going to dive into that after we go through International Women's Day, which is a global day celebrating the social, economical, cultural, and political achievements of women. International Women's Day is one of the most important days of the year for several reasons. One, it's a day to celebrate women's achievements. Number two, educate and awareness raise about women's equality. Number three, call for positive change, advancing women, and to fundraise for women-focused charities. Everyone everywhere can play a part in helping forge gender equality. From a wide range of International Women's Day campaigns, events, rallies, lobbying, and performances to festivals, parties, fun runs, celebrations, all International Women's Day activities are valid. That's what makes International Women's Day so inclusive. Speaking of which, the theme for International Women's Day 2024 is hashtag inspire inclusion. When we inspire others to understand and value women's inclusion, we forge a better world. And when women themselves are inspired to be included, there's a sense of belonging and empowerment that comes with it. The hashtag Inspire Inclusion campaign aims to forge a more inclusive world for women. With well over a century of history and change, the first International Women's Day was held in March of 1911. International Women's Day isn't country or group or organization specific. It's a day of collective global activism and celebration that belongs to all those committed to forging women's equality. World-renowned feminists and journalists and activists, Gloria Steinem, reportedly once said, the story of women's struggle for equality belongs to no single feminist, nor to any one organization, but to the collective efforts of all who care about human rights. Organizations, groups, and individuals worldwide can all play a part in the community, at work, at home, and beyond. To truly include women means to openly embrace the diversity of race, age, ability, faith, and body image. Worldwide, women must be included in all fields of endeavor. On an individual basis, it's important to understand, value, and seek out the inclusion of women and little girls. Additionally, sharing this knowledge, support, and encourage with others is key. On an organizational or group basis, there are many ways to ensure the needs, interests, and aspirations of women and little girls are valued and included. Organizations and groups can hashtag inspire inclusion through actions in areas such as forging women's economy and empowerment, recruiting, retaining, and developing diverse talent, um, supporting women and girls into leadership, decision making, and business, designing and building infrastructural meeting the needs of women and young ladies, helping women and girls make informative decisions about their health, uh, including women and girls in sustainable agricultural and food security, providing women and girls with access to quality education and training, elevating women and girls' participation and achievement in sports, promoting the creative abilities of young ladies and women alike, addressing further areas supporting the advancement of women and young ladies. Of course, there are colors to symbolize International Women's Day. The colors are purple, green, and white. They are the colors of International Women's Day. Purple signifies justice and dignity and being loyal to the cause. Green symbolizes hope, and white symbolizes purity. Albeit a controversial concept, the colors originated from the Women's Social and Political Union in the United Kingdom in 1908. And so those are the origins of the colors for International Women's Day, which are purple, green, and white. Let's run down some history of how International Women's Day came to be. This is controversial in itself because some people say it's one day, some people say there's another, but uh, this is the international. This was pretty much blessed by the UN. So March the 8th is the day, but where it originally started is up for debate. You know, the earliest reports of a Women's Day event was named National Women's Day, which was held on February the 28th of 1909 in New York City. It was organized by the Socialist Party of America, and there had been claims that the day was commemorating a protest by women garment workers in New York on March the 8th, 1857. But researchers have described this as a myth intended to distract International Women's Day from its social origin. But in August of 1910, an International Socialist Women Conference was organized ahead of the general meeting of the Socialist Second International in Copenhagen, Denmark. However, what made history for the modern celebration of International Women's Day, according to the ILO, was the fire at the Triangle Shirtwrist factory in New York City on March the 25th, 1911, which killed 146 young workers, most of whom were immigrants. By 1913, women in Europe began using International Women's Day as a vehicle to protest World War 1, which was eventually adopted by women in Russia, striking for bread and peace in response to the death of over 2 million Russian soldiers in the First World War. It was not until 1975 that the UN officially marked what is known now as International Women's Day. 2 years later, the UN General Assembly adopted a resolution proclaiming a United Nations Day for Women's Rights and International Peace to be observed by member states. So, yes, that is the history of International Women's Day. And I must say, all jokes aside, I am a huge supporter of this day. I am a huge supporter of women's rights because of my two daughters. And you know, I can say that with my whole chest because it's them that really shined the light on this whole women's movement thing with me. Yes, I had my mom, I had my older sisters and all this here, and I looked at them and I wanted them to do the best ever. But it really dawned on me when I was, raising those girls and you know, just like any parent, you tell your kids whether they're a boy or a girl, like you could be whatever you want to be when you grow up. You can do whatever you want to do when you grow up. You can be president, you can be an astronaut, you can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, you can do this and do that. And it really dawned on me the more and more I looked into what women was going through and have been going through throughout time, that it's not that simple. It's not going to be that easy for them. And especially for my girls and millions of other girls that look like my daughters. They're not only women, but they're black at that. And so you have black young women. They're behind the eight ball, doubly so. They have to work harder than anybody else, even a young black male in many cases, because you just look at the pay scale around certain fields, in the job market. A man and a woman can be working the exact same job, but the man makes 2, if not 3 times more than the woman who is doing the exact same job. And this stretches throughout. I don't care if it's fast food to a Fortune 500. It's like it across the board, and it's unfair. And I really don't understand how this is a thing in 2024. How is this even possible? And now there are some women out there who are making 10 times more than men, in certain fields. And if they're doing the job and they do their job well, God bless you for it. But I know for a fact that there are women who make far less than a man and they're doing the exact same job. In some cases, they're in higher positions and make less than a man who is in a lower position than them. And just because of their gender. And I'm like, that's messed up. And I guess I have a sensitive spot for that because I know how it is because of my race. It's the same thing. And so I feel the pain from women who go through that, but doubly so when there's a black woman. And it really brought that to light when I thought about my girls and what they're going to have to go through as they grow up in this world, and how everything is against them, and it's going to be so hard for them. And that sucks. And as a father who wants to protect them and shield them from everything out here in this world, it's some things I just can't shield you from. And this is one of them, the biggest one, and hey, man, it's just like that time. I've told this story on here before, but in case you haven't heard it, you're gonna hear it now. And if you have heard it, you're gonna hear it again. But it's like that time when my kids were younger and they used to go trick-or-treating. They went trick-or-treating, and my wife brought them to this upscale white neighborhood, thinking they'll get the good candy there, which makes sense. You dig? I get it, but I didn't go with them because I didn't care for it. But anyway, they left, and immediately they came back home because I was, selfishly, I was excited to be at home by myself for Halloween. I was excited. All right, I get to watch some movies, chill out by myself. And I don't think it was 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes later, they came back in the door. And the reason they came back in the door, they went to one house. Well, actually, they went to two. They went to two houses, but on the last house, that was the final straw. They weren't even going to try a third. Uh, the kids in front of them, who were white, were at the door, and the lady had a bowl of candy, and she let the little white kids reach in and grab as much candy as they wanted. And when my daughters got up to the bowl, she kind of snatched the bowl back and went in and picked out two pieces of candy and gave it to them. And that was their first exposure to racism, and that crushed them. And they were young. I'm talking what, 4 or 5 years old, 5, 6 years old. I don't know, but they remembered, and they never went trick or treating again. That they ruined them. You know, that white lady ruined them. But the point I was trying to get at is that's one of the elements I couldn't save them from. Yeah, I could have told them, don't go trick or treating, but I'm talking as far as racism. Can't protect them from racism, and I can't protect them from this gender bias that goes on in the world. So, yeah, I'm a big ally for women's rights, for inclusion, for our all the lovely ladies out there. Because at the end of the day, what are we without women? What are we? I'm talking to the men now. We're nothing. We're nothing. I don't know what I would be without my wife. I don't know what I would be without my two girls. I don't know what I would be without my mother, my sisters. All of these strong women that have been influences throughout my life to make me see things differently. It raised me, molded me into what I am today. Depending on who you ask, I'm a man, but it depends on who you ask. But it's crazy, man. It's crazy when you see these politicians, male politicians, who get up in front of Congress or wherever they may be and just talk down on women, going back to the reproductive rights of a woman. Look, full disclosure, I'm not an advocate for abortion. I don't promote abortion. But what I do promote, that a woman has a right to make her own decision. Whether I agree with it or not, that's not my problem. What it is a woman's right. That's their right. Now, if everybody want to jump on the religious aspect of it, even more so, that's not my problem, because that's between that woman and God. I don't have nothing to do with that. That is a woman's right. And we're talking about the same politicians who don't have a problem putting a gun in people's hands. They don't have a problem with you walking around with AR-15s. That's fine. You can take lives that way. But oh no, you can't go to Planned Parenthood. You're going straight to hell. I don't get it. Make it make sense to me. Where does that differ? I mean, murder is murder. If that's the way you see it, murder is murder. Yeah, I don't get it. But whatever. Like I said, they'll have to answer for that as well. But in any event, I think women deserve the right to choose. I think that women deserve to be on a level playing field with men in certain fields, certain workforces, because women are the glue in a lot of businesses, and they're definitely the glue in a lot of households. So let's give the women around the world all the love, all the flowers, all of the accolades that they properly deserve, not just today, not just March the 8th of every year, but every day of every year. But I digress. Let's jump into our review. Let's jump into another powerful woman, one of the most powerful women in the world. That's not my mama, and that is none other than the DC Comics character Wonder Woman, whose feature film or solo film debut came out in 2017, released by Warner Brothers and DC Films. This film starred Gal Gadot as Diana Prince, aka Wonder Woman, and it was directed by Patty Jenkins, who made a killing for herself, no pun intended, with her film debut Monster, which won Charlize Theron Academy Award in that film. And at one point, she was tapped to direct Thor: The Dark World, and negotiations broke down between her and Marvel, so she didn't get to direct that comic book film, but she was able to direct a comic book film. I guess you could say it was more up her alley in Wonder Woman, starring with Gal Gadot in this film. We have Chris Pine, Robin Wright, Danny Houston, David Thewlis, Connie Nielsen as well. And in this film, Wonder Woman, the Amazon Princess Diana, sets out to stop World War I, believing the conflict was started by the longtime enemy of the Amazons, Ares, the god of war. After American pilot and spy Steve Trevor crash lands on their island of Themyscira and informs her about it. This film was a part of the DCEU, which at the time was in its, I guess you could say, infant stage to a degree. You had Man of Steel, which kicked off the DCEU. Then you had Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, which came out the year before Wonder Woman did. And Wonder Woman is more of a prequel to well, it's not more of, it is a prequel to Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. And that was the first big screen appearance of Wonder Woman in any shape, form, or fashion. And one of my vivid, good memories, I guess you could say, of Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice, sitting in the theater, that crowd was dead. The audience was like, whatever for that movie. And for the most part, I was all right with it. I actually thoroughly enjoyed it when I was in the theater. That's when I was in the deep denial of what I was watching there. But overall, it was pretty stoic sitting there watching that movie. But the one part of that movie that got the loudest reaction, or any reaction whatsoever, while watching Batman v Superman, was the introduction of Wonder Woman, when she came in and saved Batman from the laser beam or eye beam from Doomsday. And the crowd erupted. Everybody in the theater was like, yeah, and clapping and cheering. And at that moment, I was like, I get it. You know, Wonder Woman, it's about time we get a Wonder Woman. We've seen multiple Superman, we've seen multiple Batman on screen, and any other comic book superhero you can think of. We've never seen Wonder Woman. And finally, in the way she entered the world, I guess you could say, of comic book films, was epic. And I was on board with it. And Gal Gadot, God bless her, she's not the strongest of actresses. Before this, she was in a couple of the Fast and Furious movies. Now, full disclosure, nobody in those films are trying to make career defying performances out of what they're given in those films. And so I can't really hold her to it. And I wasn't really holding her to it. Her performance, I mean, in those films. So when they announced her as Wonder Woman, I was kind of skeptical for one reason and one reason alone. Gal Gadot, as beautiful as she is, and she is a beautiful woman, she's shaped like a number 2 pencil. She is just small, and Wonder Woman is an Amazon. You know, she is a beast. I'm not saying she should look like Lou Ferrigno with a bra on. I just mean she should be kind of muscular. You know what I'm saying? But once again, wasn't gonna hold it. Let's see how the performance is. Let's see how the movie is. And when she showed up in Batman v Superman, I was all right with it. Even though she was thin as I don't know what, even though she was small and was getting bounced around by Doomsday in that film, she still held her own, and I enjoyed it for what it was. So I was excited for Wonder Woman in 2017. Now, this film it was has been trying to get off the ground for decades. You can go back as the 90s. They were trying to make a Wonder Woman film. And we're not going to touch the Linda Carter series, which was epic in my humble opinion, even though now it is cheesy and campy and all that good stuff wrapped up in one. But it's such a nostalgic, good time to watch that. And Linda Carter, who was like one of my first crushes growing up because of Wonder Woman, because she is a beautiful woman, and I just loved Wonder Woman, from that TV show. Now, I was young, but I would assume that it was a popular television series. Why didn't it, you know, jump, make the leap, I should say, to the big screen? It never did. And so it took decades for it to happen. But going back to 96, in 1996, there was a development of a live action Wonder Woman film. And Ivan Reitman, who directed Ghostbusters and Kindergarten Cop and stuff like that, he was going to produce and direct a Wonder Woman film. But that project stayed in development hell for years. So Ivan Reitman's film never got off the ground, of course. Many directors have tried. Many. Joel Cohen, Todd Alcott, Josh Whedon, before his Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel, and Avengers film fame came into play. He tried to make a Wonder Woman film, but like everybody else, it didn't come to be. So Warner Brothers announced the film in 2010, and Patty Jenkins had signed on in 2015. The inspiration for this film was drawn from the creator of the character of Wonder Woman herself. It is none other than William Moulton Marston, from his 1940s stories, and George Perez 1980s stories in the comic books, as well as the New 52 incarnation of the characters. So it was a kind of a gumbo pot of inspirations that went into this film. And also the Richard Donner Superman the movie from 1979 was a big influence on this film. Breaking down the cast, as I said, Gal Gadot as Diana Prince or Wonder Woman, I didn't mind her. I didn't mind her. You can see the shortcomings in her performance, but she did good enough. I guess that's the best way to describe her performance as Wonder Woman. I never was sold completely her in this role, but she was what she was. She was what we got, so I went with it. And now, I absolutely loved the chemistry between her and Chris Pine, but that was more because of Chris Pine. But as far as her in the role, oh man, it's hard to put into words how I can describe it, because Gal Gadot, let's just call it what it is. She can't act. She cannot act. And the reason I say that, think about it, people. Just think long and hard. Go over her filmography. You go through every film that she ever been in, ever appeared in. She never changes her voice. She has the same exact accent. Now, she has a heavy accent. I get it. I understand all that. But at least try something different. You know what I'm saying? Try something different. And she can't. Now, the reason all of the actresses on Themyscira have this kind of a funky accent to kind of try to match hers is because she couldn't match any of theirs. So everybody on this, all the actors or actresses, I should say, on Themyscira had to adjust to her. And look, this happens in film all the time. I get it, but it's just like she didn't even try, and she doesn't try in any other film. But I know we're not talking about any other film. We're just talking about this one. But she well, I'll put it this way. I enjoyed her more in this than I did in Wonder Woman 84. And Wonder Woman 84 made me appreciate this film a little bit more. I wasn't well, I was gonna save it to the end, but I'll say it now. I did not really like Wonder Woman. I mean, not to the degree that everybody else did. You know, everybody when this film came out, oh, it's phenomenal. Oh, it's one of the best comic book movies ever made and all this here. This was stuff that was said in 2017 that blew my mind. I'm like, what am I missing? And what am I missing? I enjoyed it for what it was, but I didn't, in no shape, form, or fashion, did I think this was one of the best comic book movies ever made. No, it's not even top 10 for me. It's just all right. And mainly, I believe is because of Gal Gadot. It's because of the star of this film. You know, it just didn't work. Now, what did work, I mentioned it earlier, when it came to Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, was her chemistry with Chris Pine, who plays Steve Trevor. Chris Pine, very, very good actor. Awesome actor, I would go far enough to say. And you go through his filmography, he can get a good performance out of anybody he co-stars with. He just has that thing that he has chemistry with everybody, and he has really good chemistry with Gal Gadot. The chemistry was so good, just in the scenes that they're in together, which were a lot, but in the scenes they were together, he made it seem that Gal Gadot can act. I haven't seen her act like that before, and haven't seen her act like that since. And so that leads me to believe that Chris Pine was the glue that held this film together, oddly enough, and a man holding it together for a movie called Wonder Woman. But yeah, he did an excellent job, I felt, as Steve Trevor, beloved character from the comics, and that was pretty accurate with the comics. Robin Wright as a general in the Amazonian army who loved her in this film, loved her so much. At one point they were talking about doing a TV series on Max or something based on Themyscira, and Robin Wright and all of the actresses that was in the film was going to be on the TV show. And I was super excited for that. I want to watch that. I want to watch because I loved Robin Wright. Well, of course, that's not going to happen now because the DCEU is kaput. But I loved her performance as this general. She's actually the auntie of Wonder Woman. But awesome performance by her. Connie Nielsen as the queen of Themyscira, Diana's mother. Great job. I enjoyed her performance. Enjoyed her performance in Justice League as well. The Snyder cut, not the not the Josh Whedon debauchery that we got. But in any event, I loved her performance as well. Who I didn't enjoy in this film was everybody else. Nobody else did good in this movie. Nobody. And it's embarrassing to watch. You know, trying to rewatch it, I was like, oh my God, man, nobody else. And these were some really good actors and actresses in these roles, and they weren't given much to do. Prime example, David Thewlis as Sir Patrick, which we later find out is, spoiler alert, is Ares out of the blue. Man, what a waste. Because David Thewlis is an accomplished actor, awesome actor. Love him in everything he's in. This is the one film I did not love him in. And it wasn't his fault. It was the way that character was written. It was written so bad. The reveal that he was Ares at the very end of the movie, there was no setup for it. There was no seeds planted to whereas, oh, I see it now. You didn't know how much of a threat Ares were because you didn't see them until the very end. There was nothing there. And you went on this wild goose chase because you thought that the Danny Houston character was Ares, which he wasn't. And that was silly. And his character was bad. And I like Danny Houston and didn't work. It was just bad. It was just bad. And then that CGI battle at the end with Ares. Like, why is Ares CGI? Why? It made no sense. None of that made sense. You had the character of Isabella, Dr. Isabella, who is I think Dr. Poison in the comics. That character was wasted. Uh that was a waste. I think she was on screen what 3-4 minutes maybe. I don't know. It was just what's the point of putting her in a movie? What was the point? Um well, I did lie on one thing. I did enjoy it what's her name? The secretary for Steve Trevor. I can't think of her name. Oh my god. Candy, something Candy. But she was good. I did enjoy her. She was funny. She was the comic relief. I enjoyed her. But nothing else worked. Uh acting wise. Going to the story. The story kept you interested throughout until the end. And the end made you rethink the whole movie. You go on this long journey. Hear me out now. Hear me out. It's like going on this journey through the forest. You go on these adventures, you run across bears and you run across all type of stuff and uh uh you get through them. It's these exciting adrenaline filled adventures and you're just trying to get to the other side of the forest, to the end of the forest so you can reach paradise. You get to the end of the forest. You open up through the brush and you look and there's desert. And you you look back at the forest after you survive bear attacks and all these other uh screwball adventures you went on and you're like, was it worth it? And was it worth it to just end up in the desert land? No, it wasn't worth it. And that's how I felt when you watch Wonder Woman. As fun as it was, as exciting as it was to watch Gal Gadot and Chris Pine bounce off of one another, the story of Themyscira in the beginning was exciting. Her being an outsider when she comes to our times in World War I, really good. Trying to learn how the world actually works. Cool. It was something like Superman, like Clark trying to fit in this world, even though he's the most powerful being in the universe. And that's the same thing with Wonder Woman throughout the film. And I'm like, okay, this is exciting. This is fun. Then you get to the end, and it was all for nothing. The villain you was chasing behind the entire movie wasn't the real villain. Uh, Steve Trevor dies at the end, basically for nothing. We found out in Wonder Woman 84. Spoilers, who cares? All this stuff was just dumb. It just made no sense at the end. I feel this movie would have been better if it was a straight up origin. Even though this is an origin, I mean straight up origin where the movie takes place solely on Themyscira. We never go to the real world. Wonder Woman learning her craft, sharpening her craft. Somebody comes to Themyscira to try to take over and she defeats them. That would have been cool. That would have been fine. A great introduction to the character. No, they didn't do that. They didn't do that. And I don't know, man. It was just very, very frustrating to see the filmmakers fumble the ball like this for a character that a lot of us have been waiting on. Not just women who are empowered by this movie, because they are women who's empowered by this movie, and I get it. But for men too who love this character to be let down like this, man, we've been waiting for decades to see this character on the big screen, get her own movie, and this is what you give me. Out of a what 2 hour and 20 minute long movie, I'll say 2 hours of it was awesome. It's just that last 20 minutes just bleh. They would have just stopped it at the 2 hour mark. This would have been great. This would have been the best, I mean, absolute best DC film they ever put out. But it didn't go that way. Unfortunately, it didn't work out like that. But overall, despite my frustrations with the end of this film, I enjoyed it. You know, there's more good than bad. I'll say that much. Not really mad at it. I'm just disappointed. You know how it went. But like I said before, that's how I felt when I initially saw it. When I went to go see Wonder Woman 84, which went to the theater. That was the first movie we went to go see after the pandemic. Actually, the pandemic was still popping. We went to go see it in the theater. Even though it was coming on HBO Max, I said, no, we're going to go see this in the theater, you know. And I left that. We left out that movie. I don't know how my family felt because I never asked them. To this day, never asked them. But I was so hurt by that movie. I tried to put on a happy face, but I was so hurt by that movie. I have yet to watch that movie again. I tried. I got through about 15 minutes of it and I clicked it. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't bring myself to do it. It is that bad of a film. I mean, horrible. But it made me appreciate Wonder Woman from 2017 a little more. You know, well, at least it wasn't that. Because it was, I mean, it was that bad. 84 was bad, and I was super hyped up for 84. Super hyped up. Nah. And that's after me feeling the way I felt about this film. Nah. Now, I did want to mention this before I wrap up the review. The scene, the No Man's Land scene, which everybody raves and shouts about. I am not in the camp with everybody else, if you can't tell by the way I've been told about this movie. That scene didn't move me the way it moved everybody else. Was it a well-crafted scene? Yes. Was it a empowering scene or an empowering scene? Yeah. I can see where it's empowering. But was it one of the greatest scenes? I was watching one of those lists on YouTube, like best comic book movie scenes, top 10 or whatever. And this was like in the top 5, you know, the No Man's Land scene. I'm like, huh? And it was over some really good scenes, you know. And I'm like, huh? But I just didn't. It just wasn't for me. I never talk bad about it, and I'm not about to talk bad about it now. I'm just saying I wasn't moved like everybody else was moved. I thought it was a good scene, a decent scene. Was it one of the top 10 greatest comic book movie scenes? No. No. I can look at some bad X-Men films and find a good scene. Like in X-Men The Last Stand, which is horrible. There's a good scene in that film that is probably one of the best I would put up there, you know, involving Jean Grey. Awesome. But, you know, the movie was bad, so nobody considers it. But I digress. But all I'm saying is it wasn't the greatest scene ever. And it wasn't the greatest scene ever. And I you know, I know that scene wasn't meant for me to be empowered by it, but I'm just confirming, yeah, it wasn't for me. And so, but it was a good scene. Good scene. You know, it showed how much of a beast Wonder Woman is. And that's fine. But anywho's, yeah, Wonder Woman from 2017, directed by Patty Jenkins, starring Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, gets a letter grade of a C+. It's slightly above average, but it's definitely tops in the DCEU. I'll give it that much. I mean, which isn't a hard or a high bar to clear, should I say, but it definitely is one of the better films in the DCEU. I'll put it ahead of Batman v Superman. And it pains me to say that because at one point I thought that was the greatest thing since sliced bread. I'll put it over the Josh Whedon version of Justice League. I'll put it over Shazam, Fury of the God. Well, both Shazams. I'll put it over both of the Aquaman films. Yeah, can't think of any other DCEUs. I don't know. Would I put it over the Suicide Squad? Nah, I wouldn't put it over the Suicide Squad. Maybe Suicide Squad, the one with Will Smith in it. I'll probably put it over that, but not the James Gunn version of it. But anywho's, yeah, it's definitely one of the best from the DCEU. But anyways, happy International Women's Day to all the lovely ladies out there. I hope that something changes for the women around the world. I don't care what ethnicity or race, religion, whatever. I hope that things change. I hope that you can get some type of equality going on here. Women deserve our respect, and they deserve all of the benefits that men are allotted to. They deserve that. They deserve pay raises or equal pay in areas where they're doing the majority of the work. They deserve the right to choose what goes on in their body. They deserve the right to participate in sports. They deserve the right to be included in the conversations when it comes to infrastructure and leadership and decision making and business and all this other good stuff that men are either too lazy or incapable of doing. So give the women their due. But I just would like to close out by saying happy International Women's Day. Enjoy your day. Enjoy this month that is dedicated to women. I love you all. You all the backbone. You're the glue. You're the right hand. You're the rib. You're whatever metaphor or saying I could that's out there that we could come up with. Women are that for men, and I fully acknowledge that. Love you all, and if nobody else has your back, I definitely have it. So if you would like to email the show, you can email us at kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also look up this show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network, as well as YouTube. Don't forget about the YouTube channel, everybody. The KB Radio Network channel on YouTube. Subscribe and like this video if you don't mind. Also, don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to movie goodness here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me in this celebration of International Women's Day. Want you all to know that I love you. Continue to love everyone. And until we speak again, you all be blessed.